Hi, I'm Bill Corcoran Jr. This is the On the Stacks podcast.
Oh yeah, whoa, look, they can never keep me down, I'm going, and if I ever fail, just know I'll go again. I never quit, cause I know that every loss may lead to another win. I'm going up.
Join me in today's episode as I converse with Major General John Gronski, U.S. Army retired, a leader who commanded a brigade of 10,000 soldiers and Marines in Ramadi, Iraq in 2005 and 2006, which at the time is said to have been the bloodiest and most dangerous place in the world. Major General Gronski is now the CEO and founder of Leader Grove, a leadership consulting firm. He is also the author of 2 leadership books. This episode is filled with rich stories and leadership lessons from his lifelong military career. We discuss in detail how to lead with vision and resilience, how to identify core values and apply them to your everyday life, and how to build and maintain relationships for long-term success. This episode would not be possible without the support of our sponsors, so please check them out in the show notes. I'm your host, Bill Corcoran Jr., and this is Major General John Gronski on the Stacks.
The key when you lead large organizations is not that you get to know every person in the organization, because that's impossible, but the key is to get everyone in the organization to know you. How did I do that when I led 5,000 troops in Iraq? The thing is, you've got to...
This episode is brought to you by Sweat Tent, the pioneers of the portable wood-burning sauna. Did you know that using the sauna 3 to 4 times per week could reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 50% and make you 60% less likely to experience Alzheimer's disease? That's why I've been a big fan of the sauna for years. But having to go to a crowded gym to do it isn't ideal. And all the at-home options are bulky and expensive. That's why I only use the Sweat Tent for my sauna needs. It's the most storable and affordable wood-burning sauna on the market. It not only takes minutes to set up, but it can reach 200 degrees Fahrenheit in 30 minutes or less. So whether you're enjoying it yourself in your backyard, with friends, or in need of a reliable sauna on the go, Sweat Tent is your best choice for the most portable, storable, and enjoyable outdoor sauna experience. All On The Stacks listeners will receive $100 off when you use code OTS. Visit sweattent.com today to get $100 off your purchase with code OTS at checkout. Again, that's sweattent.com to get $100 off with code OTS. Sweat Tent, helping you fire up your home wellness routine. This episode is brought to you by Burn, the fitness company behind the Today Show approved Burn board. If I'm being honest, working out can be a real chore, especially as a new dad in desperate need of sleep and cardio. Burn is founded by NEPA native Jimmy T. Martin, and his Burn board offers a low-impact core and cardio experience unlike anything I've done before. They have hundreds of on-demand workouts that are great for beginners, seasoned athletes, and out-of-shape podcast hosts who love supporting small businesses. My wife and I use it pretty frequently throughout the week, and it's honestly a great way to burn a ton of calories without burning a ton of cash. Not to mention, it's a great tool for skiers, runners, wrestlers, and hockey players. Jimmy is offering all On The Stacks listeners 15% off when they use the code STACKS15. Visit theburn.com today to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15 at checkout. Again, that's theburn, THEBRRN.com to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15. It's time to get on board today with Burn. This episode is brought to you by Kavanaugh's Grill, one of my favorite places to eat and drink in NEPA. They've got one of the best outdoor patios with 13 TVs and over 20 beers on tap. You can also dine inside at this cozy Irish-style pub where your beer never goes empty. Did I mention how delicious their food is? Their in-house smoked brisket, barbecue ribs, and wings are to die for. So grab your friends and have a drink on me at Kavanaugh's. Mention code STACKS for one free draft beer with purchase of any entree when you dine in. Located at 163 North Main Street in Mountaintop, Kavanaugh's is open at 4 p.m. during the week and 12 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday during football season. Dine in today at Mountaintop's only Irish-style pub. What's up, podcast? It's your host, Bill Corcoran Jr. here in the Blue Door Studio, protected by our friends at Ritchie Security Solutions. Major General John Gronski, welcome to the On the Stacks podcast.
Hey, Bill, thanks for hosting me.
Yeah, man, I'm very excited to have you here today.
Yeah.
From what I understand, you just got back from a cool Alaska trip.
Yeah. My wife and I were in Alaska for about 2 weeks, and we had just a fantastic time. What a beautiful state.
Have you been there before?
First time I was in Alaska and saw Denali. You know, it's hard to see Denali. I think they say 30% of all people who visit Alaska see Denali. And matter of fact, my wife was talking to some military friends we have who I believe they live down in Alabama now, and mentioned that we saw Denali, and they said, "Hey, she said to my wife, we've been in Alaska, stationed through the Army for 7 years. We never saw it."
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we were very, very fortunate that the weather was perfect to see that mountain.
Yeah. So was that the goal, like to see that, or like you guys you were there for 2 weeks, so like
the goal was just go have a good time, enjoy the outdoors there, and that was the goal, and we accomplished that mission.
Yeah, I mean you're an outdoorsy guy. I mean you rode your bike all the way across the country, back in the day.
Yeah.
So the outdoors thing for you is it's nothing new.
No, we love it. We do a lot of hiking. We still do a lot of cycling together. So my wife and I really enjoy being outside.
Yeah, and welcome back home, by the way.
Yeah.
You're originally from Moosic.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It's great to be back in northeastern Pennsylvania. I live down in Lebanon, Pennsylvania now, near Lancaster County, and just nice to be back here.
So you started, went to University of Scranton.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. University of Scranton, graduated there back in 78. ROTC graduate, so got my commission as a second lieutenant through the program there, and it's just a fantastic program that University of Scranton has. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago they had me come back and do a commissioning speech there for the graduates. Actually, it was in 2020 during the COVID, so I had to make this commissioning speech to these cadets who were graduating, and none of them were there. It's like they were all back in their, they were shut-ins, they were shut in back in wherever they were, and that was quite an interesting speech I had to give.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
that's different. And we were talking even before we came on. It just reminds me, you were saying, this, you coming in person for this, you've done a lot of podcasts. A lot, right? You've been on a lot of shows, and the only other one I think you said you've been in person for was Jocko's.
Yeah.
Right?
I was on the Jocko podcast twice, and I had to fly out to San Diego to be on the podcast. It was a cool experience.
Yeah.
Jocko's a great guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. How did you guys connect? Obviously, there's a military connection there, but how did you connect?
I commanded a brigade in Ramadi, Iraq back in 2005 and 2006, and Jocko came in while we were there with his SEAL team. And so Jocko's SEAL team was not task organized to my brigade, which meant they didn't work directly for me, but they worked in support of my brigade. So that's how I first met Jocko, and we just maintained a relationship.
Yeah. What year was that?
He came in with his team in 2006.
Yeah, and that was one of the roughest times.
Yeah, 2005 and
right?
2006 in Ramadi, Iraq. If you read contemporary history about the war in Iraq, most historians will tell you it was the most dangerous place on the face of the earth at that time. So it was the Wild West. It was pretty hairy there at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and by the way, this is, it's great to have you in person, right? Because you do a lot of shows, but not as many you get to do in person. Plus, you're back in your hometown, which is cool.
Yeah.
And this is like a unique episode. It's the 175th of the show.
Very cool.
So, it's kind of a moment for the show. So it's kind of cool. It's you've done a lot. You're a great leader for this country. Served a long time, and I'm excited to learn. I've read a couple of your books. I have a couple of the books here on the table, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit during the show. But yeah, you've had a lot of experiences, and I always tell everybody. A lot of people always say to me, like, "Man, Bill, like you probably get just as much value from the guests as people listening and watching the show." And I'm like, you're right. I'm like, I have, and you even said to me before we started, like, you have this wide range of guests.
Yeah.
And it's like I get to learn something new, like literally week in and week out. You get to hear from guys like you who you have a lifetime of experience as a tremendous leader. It's exciting to me.
It's like reading a variety of books.
Yeah.
And one thing I often think about is when you read a book, either a biography or an autobiography about, from somebody famous, it's almost like you're learning from that person, even if you never met them before, but you're reading their book or you're reading about their life, and there's just so many things to learn. I'm actually reading a book right now about Generals Marshall, Patton, and MacArthur. And it really gets into, their childhood and how they were brought up and what their interests were. And it's just so interesting. And I'm just at the beginning of the book now, so I'm looking forward to learning so many things about those three great leaders.
Yeah. What other types of, what types of books do you like to read? What do you like to learn from?
Yeah, I do read a lot of leadership books because I can, even after leading soldiers for 40 years in the Army, I'm still trying to become a better leader. So I read a lot of leadership books. I like to read a lot of biographies and autobiographies. I do like to read some historic fiction. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to make myself read more fiction because I tend to read nonfiction a lot.
Yeah, and me too.
Yeah. So I'm really trying to read more nonfiction because, when you read nonfiction, talk about resiliency, right? I know the show has a lot to do about resiliency. When you read nonfiction, I believe it helps you to become a more resilient person because you've got to use your imagination. You tend to be perhaps a little bit more creative, and it really helps. So I'm trying to force myself to read a little bit more nonfiction now. Yeah. I mean, I'm always fascinated too. Just, your books and just like any others, just podcasts, whatever it is, any type of, content like this. I'm always I'm fascinated by just people. Yeah.
Right. And, why you do what you do, how you do it, how you've done it. I've had a range of people in terms of experience level on the show, some, beginners in whatever field it is, but then, guys like you who, you're a veteran, in terms of, being a leader.
Yeah.
Some people have more experiences to share than others, but I'm always just fascinated just by just the human connection in general.
Yeah. I think that's a really good attribute you have, being curious. You mentioned you're curious, and I think good leaders have to be curious people because leadership is really a people business. And if you don't enjoy being around people, if you're not curious about people, you're probably not a very effective leader because that's really, it's all about establishing relationships. It's all about using your emotional intelligence to connect with the people that you lead. So being curious is a fantastic attribute.
Yeah, but what they say, sometimes it kills the cat, right? Curiosity killed the cat.
Well, not every one of those sayings are true.
Right, yeah. It doesn't happen all the time, right?
Yeah.
But cats have 9 lives, so,
I think there's more of a risk management moral to that whole story.
Right, yeah. You have to just manage the risk involved.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm really risking too much here, I'm just, right? We're just having a podcast, so
right.
Yeah, I am. I'm just very curious about people.
Yeah.
And just like how you built the success that the level that you got to and just everything in between. I know you probably have a lot of really, great stories of, throughout your career, and you've been all over the world. So yeah, it's just, I'm just fascinated by people in general. And I don't care what the story is, how, what you've done, what industry you're in, it doesn't matter. I was telling you before we started, it's been a mix of everybody from professional athletes to doctors to real estate moguls to people who've overcame addiction. It's just, there's, and kind of going back to how you said, you're still learning.
Yeah.
And, and you being such a humble leader, I mean, it just goes to show you really live what you say. I've read that in your books, and, being humble enough to say hey, I'm still learning.
Yeah.
And for you to say that, some people may be shocked to hear that. I mean, but they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Because as you said, that's what makes for a good leader.
Yeah. Well, I have learned a lot, and that's only because I've made a lot of mistakes. And I like to say to people, if you do something correct by accident, you don't really learn from it. But if you make a mistake, you're always going to learn from it. And so, thank God, I've made many mistakes in my life, so I've learned a lot. And I try to keep that open mind and keep that attitude about always wanting to learn more. Yeah,
it really is the only way, because if you're just always doing things right, you have to test and do things different, and until you fail, you're not going to learn.
See, that's the point of of going out of your comfort zone. If you never leave your comfort zone, if you always stay within your comfort zone, you're probably not going to fail too much, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't fail very often, if you don't make many mistakes, you're not going to have those opportunities to learn and to grow. It's like, when you break a bone, that bone heals and it actually is stronger than it was before it was broken. So it's the same with, again, I encourage people to leave their comfort zones, try things they haven't tried before, bring diverse groups around them, people that maybe they're a little bit uncomfortable with, and get to know them. And you might make a mistake, but that's the way you're going to continue to learn and grow.
Yeah, it's just human nature.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, for you, like you said, you've made a lot of mistakes. Mm-hmm. What are one or maybe two mistakes that you've made that you've really been able to benefit from in your career?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. Back in 1983, when I took that cross-country bicycle trip with my wife and our 15-month-old son, Stephen, I set a farmer's field on fire by mistake. We had a little 1-burner, Coleman camping stove with us, and getting up in the morning to heat up some water for some coffee and some oatmeal. I was just kind of rushing around and knocked this Coleman stove over in the middle of a farmer's field and almost set the whole doggone thing on fire. So,
what'd you do?
What did I do? I really started to run in a circle and make a fire break. Just so the fire wouldn't spread any farther than it was. And we were able to get it out before doing too much damage. But the lesson I learned is, hey, you got to take your time. You can't be rushing around, especially when you got a stove burning in the middle of a dry field.
Yeah, what did your wife do in the moment?
She looked at me kind of with those eyes thinking, okay, John did it again.
One of those.
Yeah.
But it was all good.
Things turned out well.
It all worked out.
Yeah.
Won't do that again.
No, I won't.
Yeah. And what I was saying, the other thing I appreciate, I told you when we spoke a couple of weeks ago about, I've had a few other people that have been in the military on the show, and every military person that has ever been on the show, a lot of them they're all very successful, but not only just that, but you show up early.
Oh, yeah, you noticed that, didn't you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I think you were like 15, 20 minutes early.
Yeah.
Which I love that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm not a military guy, but I appreciate that, being on time. That's I think that's lost a lot.
Well, you know what? And again, I'm big about demonstrating respect to people. And when I coach leaders, or when I'm doing a leadership presentation, I'll talk about two of the best ways you could show your followers that you respect them is, number one, being on time for a meeting you called. There's nothing worse than having followers show up at a meeting location at the right time, and then the boss walks in 10, 15 minutes late.
Yeah, there's nothing worse.
Yeah,
right?
Because it shows, now sometimes there's a crisis where that has to happen, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But if that's a normal thing the boss likes to do or the leader likes to do, I don't think it's a good thing at all, because what it's showing your people is that you don't respect their time. Then I think the other way you could show people that you respect them is by asking their opinion. If somebody asks your opinion, Bill, don't you feel like, wow, this person must respect me because they're asking me what I think.
Yeah, they care. Yeah, they care.
Yeah. And I think when leaders take the time to really talk to their folks and ask them what they think, that shows that they respect those people. And I think that's very, very important.
Yeah. And it just goes to show, too, that, even you as the leader, you're still always learning, and that maybe anything that you are doing, you're not always right. And that maybe somebody else, doesn't matter their rank or their position in a company, that they don't know something that you don't know. And you have to be, I think there's that balance. You have to have, you have to be humble enough to know that, hey, I'm putting these, as a good leader, I'm putting people in the room that are smarter than me in probably a lot of aspects. And that's what you need to do.
Yeah. When I retired in 2019 from the Army, but when I was a general in the Army, with close to 40 years of service, I always felt I could learn from a private who maybe had 1 year of service in, because they might be more proficient with that particular weapon system that they worked with every day that I probably didn't work with for the last 20 years. So yeah, if you and humility is a great leadership attribute, and if you try to be a humble leader, which means, just understanding you don't have all the answers. There's people at the tip of the spear that might know a little bit more about the particular issue than you do. I think it really helps lead to success.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is, one of the other things I noted in the book was vulnerability.
Yeah.
Being vulnerable. So many people are afraid of that, as if it's a bad thing.
Yeah. And
it blows my mind.
And we talked about a couple of the elements of vulnerability, at least the way I define it already. One way to allow yourself to be vulnerable is by leaving your comfort zone. Another way by allowing yourself to be vulnerable when you're leading people is to ask people what their opinion is. And then the third way leaders could allow themselves to be vulnerable is by sharing stories with their followers about times that they've made a mistake or about times they failed and what they learned from those mistakes and what they learned from those failures. Because then what you're telling your people is, hey, I'm not perfect. I've made some mistakes, but guess what? I was able to rebound from those mistakes. I was able to learn from those mistakes. I made sure I didn't make the same mistake twice. And I was able to get into this position of leadership. And it kind of gives the folks that you lead some hope.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your military career. I know there's probably no short answer to this, right? Obviously you've done a lot, but take me back a little bit to sort of the beginning. And you probably, did you ever imagine that you would have gotten to the rank that you did?
No, absolutely not. When most officers, when they get their commission, either from West Point or to ROTC, like I got my commission from the ROTC, University of Scranton. Most hope that they'll make the rank of lieutenant colonel before they retire, and that's what I was thinking. If you do things right and it's a normal career, that's probably what's going to happen. So no, I never thought I would become a general officer. I only reached that rank really because of the good soldiers and NCOs and other officers around me and some of the great mentors that I've had. So I was very, very lucky. But no, I don't think most people go into a career like that thinking that they're going to reach that level.
Yeah, it's because it's rare.
Yeah,
it's very rare.
Yeah, it is rare, and luck plays a great deal in that whole thing, and being in the right place at the right time, all of those things factor in. And of course, you've got to, hard work comes into play too. I don't want to sell that short. It certainly does. It's funny. I think I was at it might have been some type of event where there were young kids there. And I think it might have been a 14-year-old comes up to me and they say, "Oh, how do I apply to become a general?" Almost like it was like an application process. Like, I'm going to graduate from high school. I'm going to
apply for it.
Yeah, I'm going to put an application in, and they're going to select me to be a general. But it takes 30 years or so to become a general officer these days. And again, just very fortunate. And what it really comes down to is, again, having the right people around you to support and help you. Yeah.
What were some of the hardest points of your career?
Well, absolutely was commanding the brigade over in Ramadi, Iraq. I had a brigade of 5,000 soldiers and Marines. I also had some sailors in there. They were the Navy corpsmen who supported the Marines. And I also had Air Force personnel within the brigade. So very challenging. It was tough because we had a number of our soldiers and Marines and 3 of our sailors were killed in action over there. It was a total of 82 that were killed in action in the brigade during that time frame. So that was very tough. We had another, close to 300 wounded seriously enough where they had to be evacuated back to the United States. So it was very, very challenging. And that was an absolute leadership challenge, and that by far was the biggest challenge in my career.
What about dealing with the other leaders? We'll say like the Iraqi leaders. What was that like?
Well, I'll tell you, it was interesting. Well, when I first got there, we had no Iraqi military elements working for us, and by the time I left, I had 3 Iraqi brigades working for our brigade. So it was really, when you count them in, that was about a total of 10,000 soldiers, including the Iraqis. And those Iraqi leaders, like most other military leaders around the world, really respect the United States Army, the power of the United States Army. So it was all of those Iraqi leaders leading those brigades that were actually task organized. My brigade were all brigadier generals, and I was a colonel at the time. But it was no issue with them following my orders or carrying out missions that I asked them to carry out, because they just had such respect for the United States Army, like most nations around the world do.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was expecting that or not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I spent the last 3 years of my career over at U.S. Army Europe as one of the deputy commanding generals over there, and I visited at least 40 countries within the U.S. Army Europe area of responsibility, on business, going to talk to chiefs of defense or view training or what have you. And I will tell you, every European country respects the United States Army. So it's really great to see. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, you have like the perfect, I'm sure you probably heard this because you've been on a lot of podcasts, but you have like the perfect voice. Like your voice just carries so well into the mics. It's like you got this podcast voice.
I not only have a voice for podcast, now I know this is going to be on YouTube too, but so people are going to have to deal with my face.
Yeah, they get to see it too, you know. So I mean, you're a good looking guy too. So like,
I wouldn't say that.
All right, maybe we won't go that far. But you have this like the perfect voice. Sometimes some people I gotta like turn the mic level thing like all the way up, and I'm like, oh man, it's like it's barely picking them up, But you just have like this.
I guess it's just from the military training.
Must be, yeah. Like I actually had to like turn yours down a bit because like your voice is normally other people I have to have it like turns like way up, and yours is like the opposite, in a good way, in a good way. That's
that's good to hear. That's good feedback.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so maybe you'll be starting your own podcast soon. Who knows?
No, I doubt it.
Yeah. But tell me a little bit about some of the leadership, the work that you do now.
Yeah, actually, this week I'm going to be pretty busy. I'm going to be in the Philadelphia area on Wednesday doing a leadership seminar for a manufacturing company. Their senior leaders are coming in. It's going to be about a 4-hour workshop I'm conducting with them, which I love doing. It's going to be about 20 people on the senior leadership team from this particular company, and they do manufacturing, and they also do building on site. So it'll be great to talk to those 20 senior leaders. And then on Thursday, I'm going to be doing some work for a governmental agency, and it's their senior leaders as well. So that's going to be a 2-hour presentation. So I just love doing that. And I'll tell you, I really appreciate the fact that you have me on this podcast, because I like getting the message out that I call the iron sharpened leadership message, which is character, competence, and resilience, because I think it's an important message. I love trying to help other leaders continue to develop just as I'm trying to continue to develop. I just think it's a healthy thing to do. And I always learn so much when I conduct these workshops and presentations, because, I'm interfacing with other leaders, and not only are they hopefully learning from me, but I'm learning from them as well.
Yeah. You've got a great attitude about it. Not that I didn't think you would, but like, you have that just being humble. And, I think a lot of people, not that they wouldn't think that of you, but, somebody who, of your level of where you've gotten, with the military, I think some people might look at it like, oh, like he probably thinks he knows it all. He's probably cocky, this and that. But like, you're like the exact opposite. Like,
well, I've just tried to be like that my entire career. Maybe in some people's eyes, I was successful.
Yeah. Where do you think you get that from? Like, where do you think you get that trait from?
Man, that's a good question. That is a good question. I think just, growing up, I, came from, humble circumstances. My father had a family business in music, and I was the youngest of 7 siblings, and had my own, struggles growing up. And I guess I just thought that you always have to just work for something in order to get it, and don't take anything for granted. And I think if you grow up in a circumstance like that, you gain a little bit of humility.
Yeah. What was that like being the youngest of 7?
Well, that's why I'm so skinny, because,
You didn't get to eat much, right?
Yeah. Well, we'd be around the table, eating chow, in the evening chow or something. And we always had enough to eat. And the reason I know that is because whenever I would ask for seconds, my father would always say, no, you had enough. Now, that's kind of a joke,
Yeah.
No, I was youngest of 7. So, my older brothers would beat me to the food. So I would just have to eat the scraps that were left over.
You had to fight for it, huh?
Yeah.
You had to be scrappy.
Yeah, be a hungry person.
Yeah. But I also think, too, with this area, too, you growing up in northeastern Pennsylvania, I think there's just something different about the people here.
Oh, yeah.
Like, really.
Yeah.
I think part of it, too, you kind of sort of said it in a way, because you talked about your childhood growing up, and because you grew up here, I think there's just something about the northeastern Pennsylvania, the blue collar, whatever you want to call it. There's just something here.
It was
right?
kind of a tough life, but as you're growing up through it wasn't tough. I think about this a lot. When I was in grade school, right, at the Greenwood Elementary School, we were out there for recess playing football, and our football was a little piece of wooden stump.
So it wasn't a football.
It wasn't really a football, but we were using this little piece of wooden stump as a football. And then we would go in the winter and play basketball at the basketball court, and we would show up with our snow shovels and just shovel off the basketball court and play in the snow. And that's just the way. And I did play organized football in high school, but leading up to that point, just playing sandlot tackle football, and it was just a kind of a tough life, but a fun life.
Yeah. How many feet of snow did you walk to and from school? And was it both uphill? Is that the joke?
Yeah.
Right?
Both ways were uphill, and it was at least 12 inches of snow on the ground every day. Yeah. Even in the early fall and late spring, I had to walk through snow to school.
Yeah. But no, I really think it is just something too about this area. There's just something different about, I think, the people here, and you're right.
Yeah, just good, hardworking people who care for one another, look out for one another. That's just the way I was brought up, and I guess hopefully continue to be that way.
Yeah. How many times, because I'm sure it's probably happened, but throughout your career and the travels of everywhere you've gone around the world, have you ran into people from northeastern Pennsylvania?
Well, the funny thing, this is more of a south central Pennsylvania story, but when we were in Alaska, my wife had a Lebanon Valley College backpack on. 2 times in Alaska, people called out, "Hey, Lebanon Valley College!"
It's crazy.
It's kind of like, we're in Alaska. How do they know Lebanon Valley College?
How does that happen?
Yeah.
I find that happens like so much more often than most people think.
And the other funny thing, Bill, people, wherever I'm at, could be anywhere in this country or over in Europe or wherever, are you from northeastern Pennsylvania? Yeah, how do you know? It's your accent.
Really?
Yeah, apparently we have some type of...
Like people that didn't know you just said that.
Yeah.
Hey, are you from northeastern Pennsylvania? Nah.
Yeah, honest to God,
really?
Because of the accent. I'm not sure what kind of accent I have, but apparently I've
I don't know either. I guess we don't know because we're here, right?
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Where were some of those people from? Do you remember that said that to you?
No, I just remember, now and then that happens, but it happens often enough that it's something I wanted to bring up. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is funny.
It is.
I think I've heard that before, and I forget where. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's wild.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah.
But it is. It's just such a small world, and it's this northeastern part of PA, like it's such a small town, but yet there's so many connections here. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm now here, sitting in a room with a guy like you who, just your connections, like, you were on Jocko's podcast twice. It's just such a small world. It blows my mind sometimes.
Yeah.
The experiences you've had, the people you've met.
Yeah.
And
I heard I heard your podcast with Bo Nickel, and you guys were talking about relationships, but it is all about relationships.
It is.
I like to say relationships are the new currency of the 21st century. That's what really will create success for a person, is just being able to find a relationship and then cultivate that relationship. I remember hearing, and this is when I was probably a major or something, I remember some general who was talking to us, and this general was kind of giving us a little mentoring session, and he mentioned that throughout your life, you might be in school, or you might be at a course of some kind, or you might be either in a military unit or working for a company, whatever the case might be. And, when you're in those situations, you make friends, right? And, if you're going to school, you make friends at school. If you're going to a 2-week training course, you make friends at that course. If you're in a company for even a short period of time, you make friends while you're there. He said that the trick is, how many of those relationships do you maintain? And I think that's a very interesting perspective to have, is how do I not only cultivate a relationship, but maintain that relationship?
Yeah. Do you have the answer?
Yeah, I think you've really got to work at it. And, you can't maintain, a relationship of, 10,000 people.
Right, yeah.
I think, there's a book written where it was said that, the most relationships you could really maintain in terms of having good, solid relationships is like 150 people at any one time. But the trick is you have to really find the people that you value the most and then really go out of your way to maintain those relationships. The other interesting thing with the Army is, I could have served with somebody who I really enjoyed serving with, and maybe we didn't see each other for 10 years, and then we bump into each other 10 years later, and it's kind of like we were just with each other yesterday.
Pick right back up where you left off.
Yeah, so there's those type of things. But I think you really have to work at maintaining relationships, and you could do that, now through social media that didn't exist when I was kind of, coming up and making my bones. But, another way to do it, I'm a big believer in this, handwritten note cards, because so many people use email these days or text messaging, that if you really want to make an impact on someone, just write out a handwritten note card and actually put it in the mail and mail it to that person. Man, that makes such a tremendous impact.
Goes a long way.
It does.
And the last one I received was, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Al Ornosky.
I believe that.
Literally.
I believe that. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. No,
I just saw him like a week or so ago, and he's the last one that I opened.
Yeah.
It's sitting literally over my office.
Yeah.
It's still probably sitting on the desk right now because it was that recent, and he was the last person.
It's so important. And like I said, how many of those do you get in a year?
Not like the one. I'm trying to think of what was before that.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I mean, I could probably, if I really try to think about it, but it's been a while, and it's
such a powerful technique.
It's a lost art.
So again, you ask, how do you cultivate and maintain these relationships? There's a great way to do that, and just really, if you care about somebody, just show them that you care by doing those little things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how do you, because you just kind of touched on it, like, you could really only, have that true relationship with a smaller amount of people, like 100, 150 people, right?
Yeah.
How did you manage 5,000 plus?
Well, you do that in the military through the chain of command, and another interesting thing, I read a book by General Slim. He was a British field marshal during World War II. He commanded over 100,000 troops in the India-China-Burma theater. And in his book, and the title is Defeat into Victory, he writes about that. And he says that the key when you lead large organizations is not that you get to know every person in the organization, because that's impossible, but the key is to get everyone in the organization to know you. And I thought, wow, that's pretty powerful. And so, you mentioned, how did I do that when I led 5,000 troops in Iraq? The thing is, you've got to circulate. You've got to get around. And the interesting thing is, let's say I go I go out to do some battlefield circulation to see a company. A company element is about 150 soldiers. Even soldiers that were not there that day when I visited that company would believe they met me, just because other soldiers would tell them that, hey, the brigade commander was by. And so, again, it's not so important that you get to know every person in the large organization you lead, but it's important that you take steps to get every person in that organization to know you.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And I think, by doing that, it just, you really drive home that relationship, and they feel so connected to you that when they go to tell somebody else about you, that person feels like they already, like they met you, like you guys have known each other for like years. Like that's, I could feel it.
It's a real thing. It's powerful.
Yeah.
And that's the way you lead large organizations is that's the key. Some people ask me, what is the key to being a good leader? The key to being a good leader is just get out there. circulate around, get out there and see as many people as you could. And somebody might ask, well, isn't that a waste of time? How could you possibly spend the time doing that? And I like to say, well, how could you possibly not spend that time to do that? Because that nips so many problems in the bud. When we're talking about civilian companies, for example, it takes so many dollars to recruit a person. It's a lot less expensive to retain a good person than to recruit a good person. And you have to get out and show people that you care about them, and you're out and about, and you care what's going on in the organization in order to retain people. So it's almost crazy if a leader doesn't do that.
Yeah.
It has so many benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you? I'm curious on your thoughts about leading a small team.
Oh, I'm glad you asked that because
it's probably harder, right?
Well, I commanded back in the late 90s.
Was this in the book? Because I think I kind of might maybe know what you're going to say.
It might be in the book. Yeah. I don't know, but I wrote the book. I didn't read it.
Right. Exactly. Two different things, right?
Kidding. But
yeah.
But anyway, in the late 90s, I commanded a battalion of around 850 soldiers, and it was a pretty successful command. And I thought, okay, I'm a pretty good leader, is what I thought. And then I had an assignment to go over for a year to the country of Lithuania.
This is in the book, by the way.
Yeah, one of the Baltic countries.
Yep.
And I get over there. I'm leading a team of 3 other Americans. So it was me and 3 other Americans on the team, and I was the team leader. And I learned that it's just as hard to lead 3 people as it is to lead 850.
It's wild.
Yeah, because you have the same leadership challenges. You really got to be on your game. So,
like I said, it's actually probably harder to lead.
It's different challenges, but it's still challenges.
Yeah.
So anybody comes up to me, and they think, oh, you led. And again, the division I commanded, the 28th Infantry Division, there were 15,000 soldiers in that division. You led 5,000, or you led 15,000. I only lead 3 or 4. It's kind of like, hey, you have as much of a challenge leading 3 or 4 as I did, leading much more than that. So it's not about how many you lead. You're still dealing with people, and you're still going to have those. People are still going to need to be able to trust you. They're still going to. Need to be able to believe in you and understand your vision. So it doesn't matter how many you lead. It comes down to...
On the Stacks will be back in a flash after a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Elevation Wellness, NEPA's premier wellness center located on Mundy Street in Wilkes-Barre. From pro athletes to busy parents, Elevation Wellness is leading the conversation when it comes to bettering your health through integrative medicine. Founded by NEPA native Louis Helmecke, Elevation Wellness offers physician-formulated and guided treatments that are administered by registered nurses. To learn more about how you can experience the benefits of IV vitamin therapy, multivitamin booster shots, non-invasive aesthetics, or peptide, NAD, red light, and compression therapy, visit elevation-wellness.com or follow them on Instagram at Elevation Wellness NEPA. All On the Stacks listeners will receive 10% off their first purchase with code STACKS at checkout. Call 570-762-9400 or visit elevation-wellness.com to book your appointment today. Elevation Wellness, taking your health to new heights. Welcome to the future. While you're hearing this ad in the present, the Center for Technology Innovation at Lackawanna College is preparing students for the jobs of tomorrow in the world of advanced technology. The Center for Technology Innovation will offer undergraduate degree programs, corporate training, as well as short-term stackable certificates in areas such as robotics, cybersecurity, electric vehicles, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence. Based at a 90,000 square foot facility in downtown Scranton, Pennsylvania, the Center for Technology Innovation is located 2 hours from the major cities of New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia, and is just 15 minutes from a commercial airport in a region thriving with tourist attractions and a vibrant restaurant, educational, and cultural scene. Lackawanna College is a proven industry-leading innovator. But don't just take my word for it. Fast Company even recognized Lackawanna College's reputation for innovation by naming them to their top 10 list as one of the world's most innovative companies. For more information or to enroll, call 877-346-3552 or visit lackawanna.edu.
I I have the privilege of representing people who have been injured through no fault of their own, and they come to us and they place a lot of trust in us, and we represent them against corporations and insurance companies, and we make those companies know that our clients have a story, that they deserve compensation, and I'm proud to be able to do that for our clients at Anzalone Law.
To learn more, visit Anzalone Law offices online at anzalonelaw.com. And now we're back on the stacks.
It comes down to using the same type of leadership principles as I mentioned: character, competence, and resilience.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of it. This isn't really the same thing, but what it reminds me of, it was a quote, and I don't want to try to say it because I'll probably butcher it, but by Steve Jobs from Apple. And, he said something like it's, creating something that's simple, like a product, which is obviously what Apple does. Creating a simple product is way harder than creating a complex product. And it's just because, you can just throw a bunch of things at the wall and it'll be complicated, whatever, but it's actually harder to make something simple. Yeah. And it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of almost sort of similar, same concept where, it's actually might be harder to, just maybe a little bit of a different hard, right? But to manage a small team, like people think like you said, people probably think like, oh man, it must have been so hard, leading thousands of people, but it's just as hard leading 3.
Yeah, it really comes down to span of control too. Like, as a battalion commander, I had 5 company commanders who worked for me. As a brigade commander, I had 5 battalions. As a division commander, you have 5 brigades. So that's the way the Army kind of structures things. So it's generally, not in every case, but it's generally a span of control of about 5 subordinate leaders working for you, and of course you have a staff too to help you. So, yeah, it really. Different challenges, but you still have leadership challenges.
Yeah. And by the way, I didn't give him a little thank you when I mentioned Al, by the way, because Al is the way that you and I met. And so shout out to Al Ornosky for introducing us, by the way.
Let me tell you what, Al is just an outstanding leader. He runs a security company now. He is a true security professional. And I just admire Al so much, and I really appreciate everything he's done for our country.
Yeah. How'd you guys meet?
Through the Army, through the Pennsylvania National Guard. I think I was a brigade commander at the time of the 55th Brigade. I commanded 2 different brigades. The brigade I commanded in Ramadi was 2nd Brigade, but I was commander of 55th Brigade, and I happened to be in the armory, and Al Ornosky comes walking in the door one day, and we get to talking. He says, "Hey, I'm looking to join the National Guard," and I found he had a 10-year break in service. He had left.
But this was here?
This was in Scranton.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Al just comes walking in there. You guys don't know each other.
No.
Okay. All right.
And he had left active duty 10 years previous, and I found out that he was a Ranger company commander and had other great experiences while he was on active duty. And thought, man, yeah, this is a guy we want to bring in. And you could just tell from his demeanor and just the way he carried himself and the way he spoke, that he was a solid guy.
Solid very performer. Passionate.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, that's how we met. And then we continued to serve together in different capacities. I was a few grades above him. And, when you meet somebody as solid as Al Ornosky is, you tend to want to be his friend. And,
you don't forget.
No. So we maintained a pretty solid relationship, and we still get together several times a year. Yeah,
that's very cool. Yeah, and now here we are, thanks to Al introducing us. So shout out to Al Ornosky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy. The connections. Like again, going back to like you saying about the different types of guests that I've had on the show. Like it's the best guests that I have on are always recommended from previous guests.
Oh yeah, and I believe that.
Yeah, and it's to that point now where literally I think every guest now is all pretty much a recommendation. I mean, I do get a lot of requests, online, and people, friends and friends of friends that might message me or whatever, say, hey, so and so may want to come on. But I always find that and I feel like I'm putting you on the spot here, like you gotta like recommend somebody now, but no, it's like people that have come on the show have a great experience. I hope you're having a great experience, but they come on, they have a great experience, and then they go and they tell a couple people.
Yeah.
And that's like what Al did, and Al just made the connection, and a few months ago, and here we are.
Yeah. Hey, it's like any other successful business, right? I mean, it's all about word of mouth and serving people the proper way, and then people are going to tell other people that, hey, this was a great experience.
And send that handwritten note too.
Yeah.
Right. Got to make sure you get that in there because.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just so fascinating to me, like I said, because it's the journey of this whole thing over the years. It's evolved so much, and the amount of people I've met and the experiences I now get from talking to people like you and just learning. And yeah, I've learned a lot from your books, and I love it. Like, it's just, I'm always learning. Like, it's great. You know, I tell everybody, like, sometimes I feel like I'm other people's therapist, though, by the way. That's kind of like a podcasting world joke where, you know, I'm sitting here doing a lot of, like, I just like ask the tough questions, right, as a therapist. And you have to, like, you know, spill the beans on everything, right? And you're answering all these hard questions. But the punchline, I'm really bad at comedy, so that's why I'm a podcaster, not comedy. But the punchline is, I have to beg for sponsors and advertisers, and I don't get paid like like a therapist does. You know, I make a lot less money, but I butchered it again. But you get the gist, right? Yeah, I just get to sit here, ask the tough questions like a therapist, and you know, kind of sit back
and make a lot less money than a therapist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
somebody's got to do it.
I know, right? Somebody does. So yeah. So I tell everybody I'm an unlicensed therapist. That's it. I'm an unlicensed. Yeah. So don't sue me. You know, if you want to come here, I'll give you a free therapy. Yeah. You know, unlicensed.
Hey, I'm feeling better already.
Yeah. How do you feel? You feel?
Yeah.
I mean, you look relaxed. I mean, you know.
You're doing a great job.
Thanks.
You look like Larry King.
Do I?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got the. You mentioned I got the mic over here. That's like it's like a Larry King style, right? Yeah. So I'm an unlicensed therapist. I feel like sometimes, but no, it's great. Like I love it. I love being able to just have these conversations, and I've had so many people that have come on the show and really, like, I'll say, opened up in ways that they've never done before with anybody else in their life. Yeah. And I mean, that's powerful.
Well, hopefully you're not going to get me there.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. We still got some time left here, you know. We'll see where it goes. But no, it's just, it's you know, it's just, it's purposeful.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you know, you in some of the parts of the book I read, you know, is about your purpose and why and things like that. And it's, I think that really shows in the work of whatever you're doing. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't have to be this. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Whatever you're doing, you know, professionally, when you have like that purpose and, you know, the purpose of, and people can see, you know, people can tell. I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character. Yeah. You know, I'm very confident you are as well. And you can really see that through people and the authenticity and the purpose of why you're doing what you're doing. And when you do that with intent, you'll be very successful, I believe.
You know, you mentioned purpose, and purpose is so powerful. And I would encourage anybody to really look, you know, what they're doing in life and what their purpose is intended to be. And I'll tell you, I struggled with this when I left the Army.
Did you?
Yeah. In 2019, when I retired, you know, I had, as I mentioned, my last assignment was over at U.S. Army Europe, and I was one of the deputy commanding generals over there. I focused primarily on the National Guard, but many other tasks as well. And, you know, had a team around me, really had a purpose that felt important because it was to deter Russian aggression, because Russia illegally annexed Crimea in 2014 and then conducted military operations in the Donbas region of Ukraine, which is in the southeastern corner of Ukraine. And our purpose over there within U.S. Army Europe was to deter further Russian aggression. So it was a very meaningful role that I played for 3 years along with the rest of the U.S. Army Europe team.
So did you struggle with the purpose right before
this?
No,
I struggled with the purpose when I retired because I had that fulfilling purpose.
You felt so purposeful.
Yeah, and then I get back home here to Pennsylvania, and it's kind of like, okay, what's my purpose now? Like, I'm retired from the military. What's my purpose? And then I determined that my purpose is to help leaders who want to improve become better leaders. I arrived at that purpose for myself. And once I arrived at that purpose for myself, it really just was like a shot of adrenaline into me. And it's kind of like, okay, this is what I'm about. This is what I'm about to do. That's why I like to be on your podcast, to try to get that message out there to people. And this is why I love to speak to different organizations, whether they be businesses, government organizations, law enforcement. I do a lot of leadership training for law enforcement to help them all improve their leadership ability. And so that's my purpose in life. And once I arrived at that purpose after I retired from the military, it really just, was like a shot in the arm to me. And I think for anybody out there, struggling with that, you really got to find your purpose and then go for it, and it could be even something apart from your job, if your purpose is to serve others in some way and you've got a job where maybe you're not exactly doing that, hey, you get involved with volunteer work or some other activity like that to serve others. There's all kinds of opportunities out there.
There are. And it's just, you said it earlier about getting outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's where it starts.
Yeah. It's getting outside of your comfort zone and really trying new things. And guess what? If it doesn't work out, you move on to another role.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are so afraid of that.
Yeah. I have a friend who's a retired Marine, and he just retired recently, and he took on a role as an executive director for this organization. And he was there about 6 months, and he's now leaving. And I just actually communicated with him today. I said, hey, good on you. It's better to be self-aware and know that, hey, this isn't the right fit for you, so now let's go down a different path. There's something to be said about not quitting, okay?
Right, yeah, there's a big difference.
Yeah, but then there's also something to be said about, hey, is this the right fit? Does this align with my values?
Yeah.
Does this align with my purpose? And being self-aware enough to know when you have to change direction.
Yeah, and that's not quitting, by the way.
No, that's not quitting at all. That's showing some courage.
Exactly. And I think just so people understand, because I know exactly what you said, and I think people may not understand that concept, right? Like I'm a big, and I've shared this story multiple times on this podcast. So I apologize to my listeners that I've heard this story 10 times, and I'll share it real quick with you because you don't know the story. But I told you a little bit about my martial arts background. But growing up as a kid, when I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, there was a sign on the wall at the karate school in the dojo that said, "Winners never quit, quitters never win."
Yeah.
Right. And at the time, a kid, he didn't really understand it, right? But it was just, it kind of was ingrained in my brain, right? Still,
like,
literally,
like subliminal or something.
Yeah, 100%, right?
Yeah.
And still to this day, this is like the 100th time I feel like I've told this story, right? But that's how much it was ingrained in my brain. But the reason, is back then, again, I didn't really know, but it wasn't really about winning. It just wasn't about quitting.
Right.
Right. It was just not about giving up.
Yeah.
But to your point about, quitting something, there's a right time and place to quit something. If it's not for you, if it's not a good fit, if it's not serving your purpose, then that's an okay quit, right? That's not like you can't be like, oh, you're a quitter. No. Like there's a difference.
And it could be semantics. Maybe it's not really quitting. Maybe it's just changing direction.
Exactly. Yeah. I think some people might get hung up on that and will be afraid to quit because they'll think they're a quitter.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but again, once you identify your purpose, once you really identify what your own personal core values are, and I'm big on this. I don't think that many people spend the time to be introspective enough to really identify what their personal core values are. Like, I was in my 20s. I was at a dinner, and the speaker was talking about their own personal core values. And as I was driving home from the dinner, I was saying, wow, that was a pretty good talk. It was motivating. It was inspirational. And then I thought to myself, if somebody asked me, what are my 3 to 5 personal core values? Could I answer them? And I couldn't. Sure, I had values, but I never really thought long and hard about what is, the really 3 to 5 core values. So I went on an introspective journey for about 6 months, developed my core values, and I could rattle them off right now. My core values are service, persistence, integrity, commitment, positive energy, and respect. So and actually I added respect recently. As a 6th core value. And so I could tell people exactly what I stand for. And I think people need, if you haven't thought, any of your listeners, if you haven't thought long and hard about what your core values are, you need to do that. Because then you could align your core values with the core values of the organization that you work for or that you may want to work for. And if there's not that alignment there, then move on to something else. Find an organization that aligns with your personal core values. And you can't do that unless you know what your personal core values are.
Yeah, so what was that journey like for you of discovering that? What did you do?
Yeah, I took a look at some companies and people I admired and tried to understand what their core values were based on their behaviors. and then just thought about myself and what is really important in my life. Where are things I really want to stand for. So it was really just introspection, really, and thinking about it, but really consciously thinking about it and intentionally thinking about it. And writing things down and keeping a journal and making some notes, and then I finally arrived at those core values that I mentioned.
And then
to
put
you.
it into place.
Yeah. And then this is the other key. It's one thing to have core values. The other thing I recommend people to do is once you identify what your core values are, align behaviors with those core values. I'll give you an example. If I said one of my core values is service, okay, what are some behaviors that align with that core value? I guess it would be maybe belonging to a service organization. Maybe it would be volunteering. Maybe it would be my coworker. If I see them struggling, do I actually go over and ask them if they need a hand? Aren't those behaviors that align with service?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you've got, it's one thing to have a value, but then you've got to check yourself.
Yeah. Do you have are you practicing?
Am I actually behaving in accordance with that value? So I think if you go through that exercise and then intentionally try to demonstrate those behaviors, people are going to think you're, a good person, and you are going to be a good person. That's what life is all about, trying to be good to other people.
Yeah. And just taking that next step. I think that's like one of the biggest things is people are just kind of afraid to take that next step and just kind of sit in their own thoughts and be able to say, hey, what am I really about here? What am I really trying to achieve? What do I want to do, and how do I want to do it?
Yeah. And Bill, all this adds up to being a more resilient person. I believe resiliency just doesn't happen on its own. You just don't all of a sudden find yourself facing a challenge and all of a sudden you're just going to be resilient. No, you've got to work that resiliency muscle just like you work a muscle in a gym. And the way you do that is some of the things we talked about already, moving out of your comfort zone, doing things like that, demonstrating positive energy, working on your fitness. And I'm not just talking about physical fitness. I'm talking about your spiritual fitness. I'm talking about your emotional fitness, your mental fitness. You've got to intentionally work on those things in order to be a more resilient person, in order to overcome challenges. So, none of this stuff just comes without work. All of it comes with some work, but it
doesn't
really
just happen overnight.
No, and it makes for a better life.
Yeah. I think Jocko talks a lot about that stuff, and especially in discipline.
Yeah.
This
discipline, and again, he says discipline sets you free, and I believe that.
100%.
This is what I believe with discipline. Discipline allows you to have more options. Why should a young person have the discipline to get good marks in school? Why should a young person have the discipline to go to a trade school and then do well with their studies at the trade school? Because it allows them to have more options then. Why should a person go out of their way to be customer service oriented to people? Because somebody's going to notice that. It's going to give you more options. All of these good things that you do, people notice, and then it creates more options in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
And life is about having options.
Definitely. And you got to have them.
Yeah.
You have to.
Especially these days. The days of going into a company and working for that same company for, 30 years or so are over.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
So you've got to create opportunities for yourself and options for yourself. And you do that by doing by having the discipline to doing those tough things.
Yeah. Throughout your career, like who did you look up to as who do you think was a good leader that had this type of discipline or these values? Like who did you look up to, and who did you respect in terms of leadership?
Yeah, well, if you're looking for historical examples, Abraham Lincoln, I think, is a great demonstration of discipline. When you think about the struggles he had as the President of the United States, trying to bring the Union back together again, especially when the Union Army was doing so poorly for the first at least 3 years of the war, and how he was able to continue to have that unwavering faith that he was going to bring the Union back together. Just a remarkable example of a leader who was a resilient leader. So examples like him in my own personal life. Just many leaders that I've had in the Pennsylvania National Guard and on active duty that I was inspired by because of the way primarily because of the way they treated people, to be quite honest with you. They demonstrated that they cared for people. It doesn't mean that they weren't tough. It meant that they cared for people. And I think in the military, when you have a tough job like the military is, and you're expecting people to put their life on the line, it's not just about being a nice guy. It could be being a tough guy, but that's showing you care for people because you're putting soldiers in a position where they have a higher probability to come back home alive at the end of their mission if you're tough on them and you insist on tough, realistic training. So it's people like that I always admired.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there was a part in there about like the roadside bombs and with that one gentleman, I don't remember his name, but putting yourself as a leader, putting yourself in that position, and just showing the guys next to you like, hey, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm doing this.
Yeah, you might be talking about Marine Gunnery Sergeant Gunny Burkhart, who was an explosive ordnance disposal NCO, and how he got blown up, was knocked unconscious. The soldiers there on the ground thought he was dead, but he wasn't. And then he refused to be carried to the medevac helicopter on a stretcher. He wanted to walk there under his own power, primarily because he had 2 young Marines on the ground with him that day, and he didn't want to shatter their confidence.
Yeah, he didn't want them to be afraid to go do the job that he's now commanding them to do.
Yeah, so think about this. He was a leader who 10 minutes earlier who got blown up, and his main concern wasn't with his own wounds. His main concern was with those 2 young Marines that he was leading and knowing the job they were going to have to do without him.
Yeah, giving them the confidence to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, that's true leadership, caring more about those you lead than you care about yourself.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Yeah.
I remember. Picture.
So just serving with people like that, and I'm thankful because Gunny Burkhart and I still stay in touch with each other.
Do you?
Oh yeah. He lives out in Arizona now, but
nice.
We got together in Las Vegas about 2 years ago, and we still stay in touch. Hopefully, we're going to meet up in Florida this coming year.
Nice, very cool.
Yeah.
What's he doing now?
He's doing some. He was for a while doing some work for the prince or one of the princes of the United Arab Emirates, and he was actually living over there with his family for a number of years, and now he's doing some contract work for an organization. Still in the same line of explosive ordnance disposal work, though. Yeah.
How about vision? How about having vision?
Well, I mean, I'm saying this is an interesting thing about leadership, since you mentioned vision. None of these things we're talking about leadership are new. They're at least 2,000 years old. I mean, in the Bible, there's a verse, without a vision, the people perish. And that's exactly the case. That's one of the ways to cultivate trust in an organization, is a leader providing a vision and a purpose for the people they lead. People who serve with a leader are expecting that leader to provide a vision, to provide the pathway ahead, to provide the direction that we're going. Isn't that what leadership is all about, providing a direction when you think about it?
Right.
And so, vision is extremely important. And whether you're leading 4 people or you're leading 4,000 people, people want to know, hey, what direction are we going in? And think about this. Think about a leader who does not communicate a vision well. Doesn't that lead to frustration, confusion, like all these bad
aggravation,
all these bad emotions, you know?
Yeah.
And when a leader provides that vision, at least people understand hopefully what the priorities are to reach that vision and to march in the right direction. And that's the other interesting thing with priorities. Priorities cannot be changed every week or every month or every quarter. You know, I mean, as one priority is met, perhaps there could be some change, but there can't be a new flavor of the month.
And you're sending wrong signals to the team.
Exactly. You know, people want to know, you know, hey, what are the priorities, and not a new priority every week, even if we haven't met the first one yet. That really just confuses people. Communication is so important when it comes to leadership.
Yeah, I'm a big communicator. Over communicate more times than not. You can never communicate too much, right? Or could you?
Well, I don't think. I mean, I think and again, it's all about situational leadership and how you're communicating to a person. I believe that leaders spend about 90% of their time communicating. Think about that. 90% of the things a leader does is some sort of communication. And especially these days, whether it be by email, by phone, by talking to people one-on-one, by talking to a large group of people, leaders are constantly communicating. So that's why it's so important to be clear and concise in the communication, and to also be consistent and not having a new flavor of the month. Think about President Reagan. He was called the great communicator. People understood exactly where we were with our national security policy when he was president. It was he was really, I think, the only president since the formation of the Soviet Union who came right out and said, we're actually going to defeat the Soviet Union. Like, the Soviet Union is going to collapse. No other president said that. And what happened, shortly after he left the presidency is the Soviet Union collapsed. And people knew where he stood on that. So he was very, very good at being consistent in his communication. No matter what you believe his politics are. I mean, I'm not talking about politics here. I'm just talking about his ability to communicate well.
Yeah, and vision.
Yeah, and
that was a vision.
That's absolutely.
A vision.
Yeah. John Kennedy, making that speech, I think it was in 1962, where he said he challenged America to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. I mean, what a powerful vision that was. And the interesting thing, he said, why is America going to do this? We're not going to do it because it's easy. We're going to do it because it's hard.
Right.
I mean, wow, is that inspiring or what?
Yeah.
We're going to do it because it's hard. We don't do the easy things. We find the hard things to do. We go out of our comfort zone. I mean, it's just awesome stuff.
Yeah, and that's where real growth happens.
Yeah.
Personally, professionally.
Yeah.
Is doing this, because if it was easy, everybody'd do it.
Exactly.
I know it's like really cliche to say, but it's so true.
Yeah.
People don't do the behind the scenes, the tough grit work to be able to do that, and that's so much more rewarding. When you reach that goal.
That's what we used to say in the Army. If it was easy, we'd get a contractor to do it. No offense to any contractors out there. Hey, contractors are part of the DOD team.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of a little joke.
That's funny.
Yeah.
A little inside joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's too funny. So what the heck else did I want to say?
Want to talk about the bike trip a little bit?
Yeah, you know what? I'm looking at the bike trip.
Yeah.
That is, I don't think no one's ever has done that. That's like
no. There's been other people who've traveled across the United States with a baby.
Yeah.
I'm not going to claim we're
right.
Me and my wife were the only ones.
Right, but at the time,
it was 1983. Think about this. It was analog age, right? I mean, there was no GPS.
Nothing. You had no connection to anybody. It was just the three of you.
Just the three of us. No cell phone, no internet. We were living up in Tacoma, Washington at the time, and I had to. I wanted to get some maps, right? So I had to put a check in the mail, mail it out, and about 6 weeks later, these maps showed. I mean, it wasn't getting onto the internet and getting Amazon to deliver
right, you're just
next day.
Going on my iPhone, just pulling up the directions in 2 seconds.
You don't even need. Yeah. But no, it was paper maps I had, and
crazy.
And it was just a great time back then. And God was good to us. I mean, God gave us the mercy to give us a safe trip from Tacoma, Washington to northeastern Pennsylvania by way of Pueblo, Colorado. So we went 4,500 miles on this 90-day journey. And it was just a fantastic experience, because we had a 2-man backpacking tent, 2 sleeping bags, a little 1-burner stove, like I mentioned earlier, and
almost lit the field on fire.
We paid for 3 hotel rooms in 3 months, so a lot of camping out, and a lot of seeing some gorgeous scenery, and it was about the people. I mean, just meeting some fantastic people all throughout the country. Now and then, people would come up to us and invite us to stay in their house or invite us to camp in their backyard. So that was, cook us a dinner. So that was always really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah,
that is just so like I said, it's the people that you meet along the journey.
Yeah,
right?
and that's what it was about. And the book, The Ride of Our Lives, I talk about a lot of the people that we had the pleasure of running into on that journey. And it's really cool because when you're out there on a cross country bicycle adventure, it's like a subculture of cross-country bikers. It's almost like hikers on the Appalachian Trail, how they create a subculture.
Yeah.
You have the subculture of cyclists who are out there. And, there were, we met this one guy. His name was Herman. He was from Belgium. Herman from Belgium. In 1983, he had a 3-speed bicycle with leather suitcases attached to it. And he was doing the perimeter of the United States.
Wow.
Yeah, so...
By himself?
By himself. And so he had started in New York City, biked down to the southeast, biked across into the southwest, biked up through California. By the time we met him, it was somewhere, I think, in Oregon, somewhere in that area. And there were days when we would stay at the same campsites together. Like we'd pull way ahead of him during the day, but we'd find a campsite, and then later on he'd come pulling into the campsite. And so we spent about a week with him like that. And when we were getting ready to part ways, we were going to head south down toward Pueblo, and he was going to continue across the northern portion of the United States. I gave him my sister's address in Moosic, Pennsylvania. I said, you're going to be biking into New York City. I said, by chance, you might be biking through Moosic, Pennsylvania. Now, this happened, I think we were out in, I forget what state. It might have been Wyoming. And anyway, I give him the address. A month later, or a month and a half later, however long it was, my sister and her kids are driving down the road in Moosic, Pennsylvania, and I had been sending my sister pictures home. Well, actually, I was sending her film home, and then she would get the pictures developed.
Yeah,
there were no such thing as digital pictures.
Right.
And one of her kids yells to her as she's driving down the street, "Hey, that's a guy who was in Uncle John's picture." And so she pulls over, and it's Herman.
No way.
Yeah.
Literally I found him going down the side of the road.
And so she pulls over in her car, and Herman's there on the side of the road with his bike, and he hands her this old, almost torn up, scrappy piece of paper.
The address that you wrote.
With with her address on it that I wrote.
Oh my
and he ended
God.
up spending the night with her.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That is wild.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So
That is great.
yeah, so just meeting people like that, and then
Yeah.
how it connected with my family back here, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
So back to the leadership thing for a moment. Like, how about me? I'll say a newer dad, right? I have a 2-year-old son, right? And what would you say? Either for me and or for any other young, not just dads but moms, like new young parents, that are just they're new young parents. Like, what advice would you give them?
I would just say spend as much time with them as you could, and don't have any particular expectations with them. And the best thing you could do is just show them that you love them. I would say that absolutely. I think if parents get into some type of trap sometimes where they have these expectations, and they're trying to push the kid into a certain direction because maybe it's something they never did in life that they feel guilty that they never did,
and they want they're forcing it on their kid to do it.
Yeah, I think if you spend the time, and again, as you have a 2-year-old, as your child gets older, to spend time eating dinner together without the TV on, and just have those times that you could share a meal together like that really solves so many problems. And just show the child that you love them. And if they do make a mistake, don't hold it against them for the rest of their life. Just have a conversation about what the mistake was, how they could learn from it, and just show them that you still love them, and you're not going to just punish them for the rest of their life because they made a mistake. I think doing those things are really important to be a good parent.
Yeah. And not that parenting nowadays is any harder than back then. I'm sure it's just as hard, but with technology and everything nowadays, things are a lot different. Yeah. You just kind of touched on a little bit about, not having the TV on. Like, us at home, we do. Braden's watching his Bluey show, and I always say, hey, during dinner, we're shutting Bluey off. And
I think that's great. You have to.
And he gets a little upset some days, but most days he doesn't. He's two. He just turned 2 a few weeks ago, but he knows enough, and he knows now, like, hey, it's dinner time and Bluey goes off the TV.
Yeah, it's family time now.
Yeah. I think that's so important. I think a lot of that is lost.
It is. And you really, again, intentionality is a big thing. I've used the word intentional a few times now, but you've got to be intentional about those things.
I agree.
You just can't, kind of wing it and like that. You really
expect something's going to work.
You got to be intentional about the behaviors that you want to establish in your life. And the other thing is you want to try to form some traditions in your family, whatever that tradition might be. I was talking to somebody, and actually an interpreter that I had over in Iraq, he told me about a tradition. Now, he came over to the United States when he was about 20 years old in 1978. And then his mother came over a few years after that. His mother came over to the United States when she was 63 years old. When she was 70, after being in the United States 7 years, she studied and became a U.S. citizen at the age of 70. And he said at his mother's dinner table, whenever they would have dinner together, she would say grace, and then individually she would make everybody go around the room as an individual and say what they were thankful for. And before they could eat, everybody as an individual had to say, God bless America. Isn't that amazing? Now, there's an Iraqi woman who came over at the age of 63, became an American citizen when she was 70, and made everyone at her dinner table say, God bless America before they could eat after they said a prayer.
Wow.
I
have the chills.
Yeah. I just think it's awesome. I mean, that's how much, she respected our country. Our country, with all of its flaws, is still the greatest country in the world.
Yeah, can we talk about that for a minute? Because this is the greatest country.
Yeah. And we have flaws. We have a history of flaws. We have a history of slavery and other bad things that have been done. But you know what? Don't we all as human beings have flaws? And don't we all try to get better because of the mistakes that we made? Haven't we talked about that? And I think our country is on the right path to correct a lot of the wrongs we've had. And even with all the wrongs we've had, we're still the greatest country on the face of the earth. And I think we all need to be proud of this country and not be ashamed of this country. And it's just really important to believe that we're headed in the right direction. I think the best way we could do that is do what we could do as individuals to make this a great country. We shouldn't count on the federal government. We shouldn't count on the state or any other government entity to make our lives better. We have to make lives better for us as Americans. We need to count on ourselves, not on the government.
Yeah, how does one do that? Because I oftentimes hear people say like, "Oh, I'm just one person. I can't make a difference."
Everybody could make a difference. I know we were talking a little bit before the podcast, and I do like to say there's other ways to serve rather than wearing a military uniform or a law enforcement uniform.
That's right. We were saying that to Darren.
Yeah.
You were saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so find ways to serve others. It could be serving your family. My father used to say charity begins at home. Make sure that you're being respectful and good to your family members. Make sure you're trying to create a community in your neighborhood and get to know your neighbors a little bit. And you see a paper laying on the ground, pick it up. I know this stuff may sound silly to some people, but it's all about serving others and being a good citizen of the community, and that's the way individuals do make a difference.
Yeah, and it's all the small things, and these are the things I think people don't realize that all those they're small tasks.
Yeah.
Right. But you do those, like you do one of those, you see somebody else. It's contagious, right? Like you have this. I mean, you personally too have this energy about you. It's a contagious energy. I love being in a room with a guy like you who, you're so passionate. Like you're like ready to come over to the table, and stuff, which is good. Like, you know what I mean? But you're passionate about, like, even like you said, even if it's just picking up that one little thing off the ground. Like instead of walking over it, picking that up, and when somebody sees that, they're like, oh, hey, he did that, I could do that too.
Yeah.
And you don't realize the effect that you're having on people, but just by doing such a small task, I think.
Yeah.
And by doing those things like just day in and day out, it's like a butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Right. Like.
Absolutely.
People don't realize. They think, oh, well, I'm just one person picking up that one thing. Well, it's like, well, imagine if the next person did, and then that person told two people. I know it's.
How about if everybody listening to this podcast wrote down 5 little things that they could do? Maybe a little thing like saying hello to their neighbor. Maybe doing a little thing like if they see their neighbor struggling with something in the yard, ask them if they need a hand. Anything like that, you know?
There's so much from this show already. I mean, like, and we only like scratch the surface, by the way. Like you said, there's so much. There's so many takeaways. I mean, I was over here making notes myself, during this. And it's like there's so many things that people can do, even just from listening to this conversation that we had, that can make a really big impact, I think, on their own life, friends, family, work. Like, it's not just, all business. Like, there's so many things you could do. And I think people just need to just try some different things.
Be a good human being.
Yeah.
Be a good citizen of the world.
It's not that it's not hard to be like a good human.
No.
Right? Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's like, it's actually very easy.
Yeah. You gotta have a positive mindset. I know you talk a lot about mindset. Mm-hmm. You have to have a positive mindset. You have to have, again, that unwavering faith about the future that you want to see for yourself and for whatever your community might be, and really go for it.
Be resilient.
Be resilient.
Build
be intentional.
build the resiliency.
Exactly. Build that resiliency muscle.
Yeah, because it does. It takes time, repetition.
Yes,
it really does.
Yeah,
it's I know David Goggins. I've read his books. I'm a fan. I don't know if you are, but it's building that mental discipline. Like that is very true.
Yeah, I really appreciate everything Goggins was able to overcome. And I listened on audio to his first book, Can't Hurt Me. And just amazing how he suffered as a young boy, and then how he became this
incredible.
How he got all out of shape, and then how he was able to turn himself around. So I really like that part. I don't really appreciate the language that he uses all the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, a little harsh.
I mean, there's some messages I see. He might be on Twitter with a little message or something, and I'd love to share it with my 8-year-old granddaughter.
Yeah, but you can't. You're right. Right. Yeah. You have to rephrase it and tell her in person.
Yeah. You know. But hey, listen, I spent 40 years in the Army, so I didn't have the cleanest mouth in the world all the time. But again, I think there's a certain amount of decorum you need to have. You can listen to some podcasts. I'm not going to name names here, but I mean some of the language is like, well, why do you really have to talk that way? I mean, you could get your message out in other ways.
Yeah. Goggins is he's got no filter. Zero.
No.
Zero.
Hey, I guess it works for him, and I know he's got a lot of fans. and like I said, I admire what he overcame.
Yeah. Did you read the second book or no?
No.
No?
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I loved it.
What's the title of the second book? Do you remember?
Why am I? It's still what? It's
I put you on the spot here.
I know. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah. I don't know why I'm blanking out. It's I'm gonna look it up right here. It's Never Finished. Duh. Yeah. Never Finished. Yeah.
Is it as good as the first book?
It is.
Okay.
But I will say, like, a lot of it does carry over from the first to the second, though.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a lot of, I don't want to say like repeat the same stuff. But kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
still have a little bit to go with it. I'm like 75% of the way through, but it was just as good as the first one.
Read stuff like that inspires you. It's all good. That's listening to a podcast the other day, somebody mentioned something about how to be a good author, and he talked about your input equals output. So if you want to be a good writer, you've got to read a lot, you've got to get inputs into your life in order to have good output.
Yeah.
And some of the inputs could be listening to a podcast like yours, or it could be reading a book like the Goggins book, or other books. And again, if you intentionally try to bring those type of inputs into your mind, you're going to have good output in your life.
I love that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Now, if you don't read, if you don't listen to podcasts, if you sit around and watch some of these crazy reality shows on TV at night and that's all you do,
it's garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, it's not very good input, is it?
No.
And the output's going to be garbage.
I stopped watching so much, like, just TV and stuff in general. Of course, everyone, you got to have, you go on that you binge something on Netflix or whatever. And of course, sometimes you do it just to, relax and whatever. And if that's your thing, all good,
Mm-hmm.
But man, like over the last year, like me personally, I've cut out so much of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'd rather do things like this, read your books and just do these other things that, it's meaningful to me.
Yeah.
And then like you said, like it's, consuming this type of content, whether it's listening to my show, listening to Jocko's, or listening to whatever. It's like I always, and I've said this before, like you become what you consume.
Yeah.
Right. So like if you listen to Jocko and you're like all about Jocko, whatever, I'm just using this as an example because we've talked about him a few times, but like you'll kind of start to become and sort of like him, and because like you admire him and you like you want to have that same energy and vibe and vision and goals and discipline.
And that's a good thing. You got to find people that you admire and then find out what are they doing in their life, and then start to model that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I was listening to this podcast, and a guy named Hal Elrod was on, and Hal Elrod wrote a book. The name of the book is Miracle Morning, and he talked about a little routine that he recommends people go through in the morning. You ever hear that?
Yeah.
And he has a little acronym, SAVERS, right? SAVERS. And I started to do this about a month ago, and I'm going to have to take a little drink of water.
Go ahead.
Here.
All right, water break here. Savers. I'm pulling it up here too now, so I don't forget. I'm bringing it up on my browser here, so I can.
So Savers, and I've been doing this now for about a month. Every morning I wake up about 5:30, and I go through this little routine. The Savers stands for silence, and I'm not much of a meditator. I don't really know how to meditate because I've never spent the time to really try to learn it, but I'll sit silently for a while and just kind of breathe in through my nose, out through my mouth, and just kind of let my mind wander. So that's the S, silence. That basically means meditate. The A is affirmations. You got to go through some positive affirmations, so I do that every morning. The V is visualize. You've got to visualize what your future life is going to look like. And a technique to visualize is to have a conversation with your future self, like maybe 5 years from now. Just visualize your future self 5 years from now and all the good things your future self is involved with in terms of from a family perspective, from a financial perspective, from a career perspective, whatever the case. But the V stands for visualize. The E is exercise, which I do every morning. And again, you don't have to do these things in that order. And then the R is read. So what I've been doing now is I've been reading scripture from the Bible every morning. And then the S is scribe, journal write. So I've been journal writing every morning. So
I love this.
And then I've added two.
Add your own two things on it?
I've added two things at the end. It's a P and a G. The P is prayer. I make sure I pray in the morning. And then the G is gratitude practice. I make sure I go through a gratitude practice every morning. And to me, from what I've learned, it's a little bit more than just saying in your mind what you're thankful for. Another way to conduct and that's a good thing to do, but another way to conduct a gratitude practice is by thinking of a time when you've done something good for somebody and how it made you feel. And that actually has a more positive mental and physical effect on the body when you actually create that into a little 30-second story and rewind that story in your mind. So that's what I do every morning. It doesn't take a lot.
Every day.
Every day. It doesn't take a lot of time. And when I say read, I'm not reading for an hour. I'm reading a little bit of scripture verse, and I'll journal. Again, you don't have to journal that long. Just write some things down, and I do that every day. I go through that practice, and it's really been. Some people say if you do one of those things every morning, you're going to improve.
Oh yeah,
but if you do all of them, you're really going to improve. So again, it's just my journey to try to seek some self-improvement.
Yeah, and even if like somebody wanted to start, like even if you just started small, because I'm also the type of person that sometimes like I'm like 0 to 100. Sometimes like with me, I'm a competitive person. I've always been. I don't really have like an off switch, right? It's always like go. Like, and I just when I do something, I do it 100%. If I commit to something and I'm saying, hey, I'm gonna do that. I'm going to do it, but then sometimes the negative side to that though is you could burn yourself out real quick by trying to do too much too fast, right? And that happens sometimes. Like when I work out, I say, hey, I'm going to start this new workout routine, and I used to be a runner, so like when I run, like I'm not just I can't just like keep like a easy jog. I'm like,
Right.
I'm going all out until I fall over. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's just what I've kind of always been used to, right?
Yeah.
But something like this, like even if somebody just started with just the S,
Yeah.
just start, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and then build on it.
Yeah.
And I've found myself personally, over the years now, like, hey, I can't run like I used to. I know that,
Right.
But if I want to maybe kind of get back to like that, you could just start a little small, and you just gotta, have the discipline to, realize and be aware, like, hey, I need to start smaller now, and
Yeah.
even if it's just one little thing, even if you do one thing a day, maybe for a couple weeks, and then you add the second thing,
Yeah.
and then you add the third thing, but you just have to, ease into it. I've been, one myself guilty of that, where I've, I try to like do it all because like
Yeah.
I'm like, I commit, like I get,
Yeah.
I get so excited, I
Yeah.
get like real passionate
Some
about
people
things.
will do that and then they'll stop.
Right.
And see, that's the other thing I like to say about exercise is like, sometimes in my life, I might not exercise for a few days. That doesn't mean I'm never going to exercise again for the rest of my
Right.
life. You
Yeah.
got to get back into it.
Yeah.
Sometimes life happens and it throws you off a little bit, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't get back into it.
Yeah.
Like if I miss this Savers routine for a couple days in a row,
Yeah, you're not going to just quit. You're not gonna
doesn't
just
mean
stop.
I'm never going to do it again.
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to try to be as consistent with it as I could.
Yeah. And that's the consistency. I'm a big consistency guy.
Yeah. I think it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It all ties in with the discipline and the resilience and
Yeah.
consistency. They all just build on top of each other.
And you don't have to do all, people listen to podcasts and they hear all this great stuff
Yeah.
you should be doing.
Yeah. Because we talked about a lot.
Yeah. And then some people, man, I'm not doing any of that. Man, I'm not going to do any of it because it's too much. It's as you mentioned, you don't have to do
Yeah.
everything. Just try something. It's okay.
Right. Just start small. Start somewhere small. Start small. That's all. Just take that step. How about that?
Exactly.
Just take the step. I think,
Yeah.
some people think like, oh my God, how am I going to be able to do all that stuff? Well, you don't have to.
No.
You'll get there.
Yeah.
It may take you a year. It may take somebody else a month. It may take somebody a year.
Yeah.
But so what?
And you know what? You may never get to all of it.
Right.
But you're going to be doing something.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's better than nothing.
Like I said, if you do one of these things I just mentioned, that Savers,
Yeah.
PG acronym, if you do one of them, it's going to improve your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's better than watching the stupid reality TV show, right?
Exactly, yeah.
That just like melts your brain.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
Yeah,
and
you
then
gotta-
and then complain, and people complain. I can't stand when people complain about the situation, but they don't want to do anything about it. I'm also big on that. It's like, guys, just stop complaining, and just take a step.
Yes.
Just do something.
Take a
It
step in
actually
the right
it actually takes
direction.
more effort to complain.
Yeah.
Than it does to do something about it.
Agreed.
Right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I get so fired up about this because I see people like on social media and stuff. Like I'm a positive guy. I try to, everything I do, keep it, not that I'm overly obnoxiously positive, because there's some people out there like that too. I'm realistically positive, right? It's just, but I'm not going to go complain and of course we all do it every once in a while. 100%. I'm not saying like I don't, right? But I'm just the type of person where it's just like, nobody likes a complainer.
Right.
Right? Everyone, there's nothing wrong with venting.
It's like an energy sponge.
It
They
is.
Just sap
It just
energy
sucks
from
you.
the people
Yeah.
around them.
Yeah, it's like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
I have zero.
Yeah.
Like, over
You
the
don't want to
years,
be around people like that.
it's exhausting.
It is.
It is, John. It's exhausting. Like, yeah.
And that's the same thing, again, talking about leadership, because that's really what I'm all about now. Is I like to say you don't want to be the type of leader who brightens up a room when you leave it. Right?
Yeah.
You ever have a leader like that? They brighten up the room when they leave it. It's like people, thank God that leader is gone, man.
Yeah.
You want to be the type of leader who brightens up a room when you enter it. That's
Right.
the kind of leader you want to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I get so fired up sometimes about some of this stuff because it's like, I see, and whether it's friends, even sometimes it's family, and sometimes it's hard to even, be around people that like are close to you, and you don't want to cut ties, and it's like awkward. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's also part of like the natural growth of you personally and professionally, and there's nothing wrong with slightly taking a step back from people that aren't adding value to your life. And I'm all about just I think you attract like-minded people.
Yeah.
I believe that's why you're here. That's why Al and I connected.
Yeah.
And I could trace this right now back to like literally I don't even know how long ago. I'm not even gonna go into it because it'll just keep going back and back and back. But it's just one thing builds on another, and you just attract people that have the similar mindset, similar values, and it just
Well, it's like a karma thing.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, if
I think I underlined that. It's in one of the books. I forget where, but
I mean, if you if you put out good effort is going to come back to you. If you try to help people be successful, you're going to become successful. You know, it's just a rule of the universe.
It is.
Don't ask me how it happens, but it happens.
Yeah.
You know,
it happens. I really believe it.
Yeah.
Like when because it's, again, I know I'm like repeating what you said, but like you put that energy out, it's going to come right back to you.
Yeah. And you know, one thing I really tried to work on, I'm trying to get better at it, and I think I'm getting better at it, is, you know, we have bad things happen to us in life sometimes, you know, just things that make us sad or things that make us mad. And it's kind of like we're in control of our emotions. You know, so if I want to be mad about something stupid and just, you know, have all this negative energy being used up at being mad because something stupid happened, that's on me. I have control over that. So I'm really trying to control my emotions. You know, if something happens that I'm not very happy with, it's kind of like, you know what? I'm not going to let it ruin my day. I'm not going to let it ruin my life. I'm, as a matter of fact, I'm even going to still be happy. I'm not going to let somebody else take control of my emotions. I'm going to keep control of my own emotions.
Yeah, and the fact that you have control.
And the fact that I realize that
you can take control, because I'm just as guilty of that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's something even myself personally too. Like I let little details of little things that like aren't really the end of the world, but I just make them the end of the world, and you get in your own head about it. And it's like, why even let that, you know, enter your brain and have you ponder it all day long, and you're frustrated for nothing.
Don't let somebody have that control over you.
Exactly.
You know, and I know that's easy to say and hard to do. I know it's hard to do, but you could work on it and you could become better at it. But really focus on not allowing somebody to get you into a bad mood. You can control that mood.
Right.
Yeah.
So this really is like a therapy thing here. You know? So this is what I mean. This is like, you know, it's like both ways here. You know, like we're both just feeding off each other now. You know, so I don't know who got the therapy lesson, you or me today, but you know, I'm good with it.
I know I learned.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This was amazing. I really appreciate the opportunity, you know, that to have this conversation with you. And I think there's more to be had. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So how can our listeners connect with you online? You got the 2 books here. I didn't even hold them up, but we got John's 2 books. I read them both myself. Love them. Highly recommend them. But where can people find you online? How can they buy your books? I mean,
it's very, very easy. My website is johngronski.com.
Very easy.
Yeah. So go to that, and you'll have a connection to what I call the Leader Grove store, where you could purchase the books, or you could purchase the books at any bookseller, you know, online, Amazon or similar companies to Amazon. But that's where people get the books. And, you know, like I said, I love to go out and conduct leadership training for various organizations, so people connect with me on my website if they want me to provide that service as well. I love doing it. I'm a keynote speaker and a leadership trainer, and I just love to get that iron sharpened leadership message out there to organizations.
Love it. Are you? Do you have any speaking engagements near future?
Well, yeah, like I said, Wednesday and Thursday, both, and then September I'm fully booked up. So Are
you doing anything on northeastern PA area anytime in the near future? Like
No. I've done some.
We gotta get you something right here, because I want to come see it too. Even if I have to travel a little bit.
Yeah. Maybe we could even do a book signing up here or something. I've done some book signings.
That'd be awesome.
I did book signings over in Lithuania and in Poland.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And but I would love to do something up here in northeastern Pennsylvania. I've done some talks up here already. Yep. And I would love to come back and do some more. So
awesome.
Thanks for asking about that.
Yeah. We'll have to put the word out, and it'd be cool. I'd love to obviously, you know, meet up with you again, you know, next time you're in this area, and it's just it's fun. You know, like I said, I love being in the same room with people, you know, like you. It's just there's just something about it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the time that you spent today. Thank you for doing what you do. You know, you get this message out there to people who are listening to your podcast, and I think it's really important what you do. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for allowing me to be part of your day today.
Of course, yeah. And likewise, and I know as cheesy as it sounds, but, you know, I appreciate you and your service to the greatest country, you know, in the world. Yeah. And thanks for all you do. I've learned a tremendous amount from you. So, man, this has been great. So I appreciate it, and look forward to the next one. So
thanks, Bill.
Major General John Gronski on the Stacks podcast in the Blue Door Studio. Thanks for joining me. If you want to see more On the Stacks content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/onthestackspodcast or search the hashtag OnTheStacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.